Well, good afternoon, morning, whatever it might be in your world. This is Thell Prueitt with his beautiful, wonderful, delightful wife, Julia, and my afternoon coffee cup. Got kind of a sad story to tell you. It's sad, it's ridiculous, it's totally, when I tell the story, if you haven't experienced it like 6 million American families have, you're going to say, I can't believe that. In fact, I've experienced it, and I say the same thing. I just can't believe that. But before I go any further to tell you the story, there's a book called Chain of Title about 3 Americans who uncovered Wall Street's great foreclosure fraud. And again, if you haven't experienced this, then, well, you're in for an awesome eye-opener. But a lot of questions can be answered by getting this book. It's not just about 3 Americans, that put their life and time on the line for years fighting this inscrutable, this dominable criminal that we call the foreclosure fraud that was concocted in Wall Street, and it's just spread throughout banking industry, mortgage industry. And to illustrate, I'm just going to tell you my story, and it's basically fraud. And there's a document here that if you've gotten an email or something, this document will be in there. And it's a document that got filed on December 20th, 2010, when the banking industry was trying to cover up their fraud. And so they made up it's kind of like, they lied. And now they got to make up a document to fit the lie. And they filed it at our county courthouse in Llano. And turns out that's a crime. In 2012, our Texas legislature made it a crime to file a fraudulent document in order to cause someone harm. Of course, the harm they're attempting to cause is taking my homestead. And again, I have to keep saying this because I've experienced this gone through this for 8 years, and this document I just found out recently that it's fraudulent. I knew that it was fraud. I knew there was something terrible happening because Bank of America, who I was dealing with at one point in time, they got sued and they paid out a bunch of money. I think I got $500, and HSBC Bank, they just settled for over 100 million. And these are just drops in the bucket. They pay out this money, but it's a drop in the bucket to what they made on this fraud. But let me just break this down for you, because I've had some federal judges look at this, and they turn a deaf ear. And as far as I'm concerned, any judge, any attorney that uses this piece of paper to cause me harm are criminals too. And so I need to break it down, because I think sometimes judges and attorneys, they see so much paper, they look at that and say, oh, that's nothing wrong with that. Well, let's break it down. This is an assignment of mortgage, and it's fraudulent from the top to the bottom. And by the way, it was filed on October 6, 2010. But then they got another copy of it, certified copy, from our county courthouse 2015, because for the second time they were attempting to take my homestead, and so they used the same document, and they just tried again using the same document, and hopefully we'll tell you the end of the story. But real quickly, at the very top, New Century Mortgage Corporation has, and I have a one page here that, what I've done is cut it out and break it down, because so for anybody that really wants to understand, at the very top, I've got the very top of this document. In New Century Mortgage, they're signing to HSB Bank USA National Association as trustee on behalf of the Ace Securities Corporation Home Equity Loan Trust Series 2005 HE4 asset-backed pass-through certificates. That's an entity. It's what's called a securitized note, and it actually closed out in 2005. But we'll get into that in a little bit. And they saying my mortgage got transferred by New Century Mortgage. Now here's the fact. Yes, the only part that's true of this document is, and I've got this on fraud page number 1. Okay. New Century Mortgage did business with me April 21st, 2005. That's 2005. Okay. But immediately they sold that note to Countrywide. I made them a few payments, and then they turned it over. Countrywide turned it over to Bank of America. And at some point, there's been several attorneys. I've dealt with about 13 sets of attorneys on the other side. At some point, Wells Fargo put their hand in there. But in all of this, they wouldn't accept payments. Their whole purpose was to foreclose on my property. They would tell me, send this payment, and I'd send it, and then they'd send it back. They say, well, you got to send certified funds, and I'd send certified funds. They'd send it back, and they've done this to millions of Americans. We have people where 2 companies trying to foreclose on the same property. We've had cases where people have never missed a payment at all, ever, and they get foreclosed on. It's ridiculous. Go check out the book. So, at no time would these entities accept payment. They wanted to foreclose. Well, in this fraud page number 1, what I pointed out is that the first foreclosure notice that I got was July 11th, 2010. And it was the first time that I'd seen this HSBC. I call it the entity, so I don't waste a lot of time saying that whole long thing, that securitized note. Now has my note. Well, what's interesting is that it's like an oops. This thing got filed because they sent me this notice of foreclosure July 11th, 2010. And this document didn't get filed till October 2010. And they just made up a bunch of stuff. And I'll tell you exactly what they made up. None of it's true. So first thing, New Century Mortgage, and I've got this on our page number 2 here, just so we can kind of break it down simple. New Century Mortgage went out of business in 2008. Okay, so this is, of course, New Century Mortgage hadn't touched my mortgage since April 2005. But all of a sudden, New Century Mortgage, who went out of business in 2008, I got to say that several times because I think some people it just goes right over the head, especially judges and attorneys for the other side. So 2008 went out of business, but all of a sudden they have a VP, Trent Thompson, who signs this in Dallas for New Century Mortgage, who is out of business in 2008. And I talked to the trustee for the bankruptcy of New Century Mortgage, and he says that no way they could be doing business because they were liquidating, doing all kinds of, didn't have any officers, nothing was, they didn't have any way at all to transfer this to anybody in 2010 because they were out of business 2008. Second thing is this securitized note, of course, closed out, and I've got a certified copy of the note, the securitized note from the SEC, closed out in 2005. Again, this document is signed in 2010, okay? Got that? So it's closed out, and it's got hundreds of mortgages in it, but of course mine couldn't be in there because they closed out, and I didn't do business with New Century until 2005, and they're saying that this got put into their entity in 2010. So they're out of this is closed out. And I have another certified copy from the SEC attesting that the SEC terminated this entity. It's terminated. It's gone. It's dead. And yet this document is saying that New Century Mortgage, a dead company, is putting something into a dead entity. That's fraud. And it's a crime to try to bring harm using a fraudulent document. So the third page that I have here, thank you very much, simply says, this document, by the way, Trent Thompson, I don't know if they signed his name. I don't know if Trent Thompson, there is a Trent Thompson, he lives in there's a lot of them out there. But a particular Trent Thompson was actually a VP during this time frame in Bank of America. So again, I'm hoping that we do have criminal charges filed with the Attorney General, State of Texas, and also with our local county sheriff's office. And I hope that they find that this Trent Thompson lives in Round Rock is not the same one. But they used his name, and whether he signed it, I don't know. We can't find this notary, but the investigators might. But we have, and what's sad is our local county, they didn't know this was a fraudulent document, but it's filed on volume 1525, 1104. And again, this has been a horrible, terrible journey. And I'm just suggesting that anybody, whether it be a federal judge or attorney, run from this document like it was fire, simply because if anybody uses this document to cause me harm, they're either conspirator or they are the perpetrators of a felony. Now, what's sad is that our legal system is broken. And whether you believe that or not, you probably have no problem believing it because of all the crap that goes on. That's not to say there's some great judges. I've had a great judge here in a local county that has been over backwards to help us, and made sure that and he has had several occasions to actually hear this, but they've always figured out ways to yank it out from under him so that they put it over in the feds, and they somehow have control of the federal judges. I'm not sure why, but probably has something to do with money. All I'm saying is that this has to stop. We have right now there's literally millions of homes that there's no clear title, and the American dream is to be able to pay off a home. Well, I encourage anyone that has a mortgage, make sure you know where the original title is. And if you've been taken into foreclosure wrongfully, please stand up for what your rights are. So with that, I encourage you to read the book, and let's have a better America.